Pierre Brunelle, the founder and CEO of Noteable, and he will be giving us a talk on Python with Papermill, origami, and genai. I think you'd like to prefer to have a question at the end of the session, right? Yeah, so please hold on to your question till the question and answer time. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear me well? All good? Awesome. Thanks for joining. So I'm going to cover two parts. One's going to be about really ChatGPT in notebooks and in notebooks in ChatGPT. I'm going to go pretty fast because I really want to give a live demo, which is the fun part, and kind of make it very interactive. But a bit of context about me quickly. I'm half French, half Swiss. I'm here in Seattle, so if you want to chat after the talk or connect, feel free. My background is in structural engineering and decision sciences. I built a train station in Jeddah, in Saudi Arabia. If you don't find me talking about data science, I'm going to write about time. So that's what I do. Also the CEO of Noteable. If you don't know about Noteable already, give it a shot at app.notable.io. We mostly make it easy to access data and compute. We help people write with Python, SQL, R, and no code. And we help with different type of use cases from machine learning, ETL, to building dashboards. So I really want to focus the talk on something that I hope is going to become possible, and you will see with the demo and the live video I'm doing, what I call data science on the go. My dream is using kind of LLM now, seeing how you can, not just always like the other talk you have seen with Jupyter AI, and we have something like that as well, bring LLM into the notebook, but how you bring the IPython kernel on your mobile, on your device. So wherever you are, you can just ask maybe an assistant to do some prediction for you, to do some data science operation, and then you go back to your computer maybe the next day or whenever you are back from your trip or you're on the bus or the park, and see the code that has been generated and take it from there. So it's really kind of a different approach to that. So the part one, I said ChatGPT in notebooks. If you attended the talk about Jupyter AI, we have a similar package, and Microsoft has been working on one as well. Everyone has been working on one, so I'm going to talk about that a bit. And the second part is about notebooks in ChatGPT, which is the most interesting part of the talk, and I'm going to give a live demo about that. So the first part, I'm going to go pretty fast. There's a bunch of repo now, plugins, extensions about all of that. IPython GPT, there's Jupyter AI, which was a talk yesterday. There's one from Microsoft as well. I just found out there was a browser extension now that you can use. Ours is called genai. We released that, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago or months ago now. There is like all of those just reproducing the experience that you have in ChatGPT within your Python kernel. So you have an assist magic, and our focus is also mostly on the automatic error handling, which is the part that I'm going to focus on here. Instead of just relying everything on you providing comments, because we thought about how there is a machine-to-machine interaction, kind of, and seeing how GPT can just talk to the notebook automatically. And we felt the error in the trace back was the best place to start. Actually, I think the CTO or president of OpenAI, when they introduced GPT-3 or GPT-4, I don't remember, did that exact example manually on that live stream. He took the trace back in Jupyter, put it back in the chat, and got kind of feedback loop from that. There's a YouTube live stream and notebook example you can click whenever you will have access to a slide. So why did we focus on the automatically focus on errors and exceptions? Is because when you write a notebook, errors is very disruptive, very frustrating. It's very difficult to understand most of the time. You always scroll down to the last line of the traceback, and so there's a lot of opportunity for improvements. Even the Python kernel improved a lot lately by trying to provide insight into the traceback, and the Python development around it is really focusing on trying to make more sense of those errors. And there's a doc below since the last update around the improve message errors. So what we did is create custom exception handlers to try to transform that obscure messages I was describing and try to have a feedback to ChatGPT as really context aware, because that context, as you all know, is going to make ChatGPT more relevant about what we are talking about. And of course, as part of the integration, as we give more and more context about the runtime, about what's in memory, about the file that's within the project, everything that you can give to ChatGPT will help it make more sense. All of that, the goal is to streamline the iteration process. So the benefits, like I said, improve the dialogue between the user and system in action, and really embracing the fact that making errors is great, and that's what I call error makes perfect. So as you can see a screenshot here. I might give a demo of that if we have time at the end, after I focus on the second part. But basically this package, you can just load it, put your own API key from OpenAI, and each time there is an error, it's going to automatically provide a suggestion, and then it's going to format the markdown in the code, and you're going to be able to just do whatever you want with it. Either ignore it, do something else, take it, replace your code. It's really manual in the process of taking your next step. We don't have buttons, we don't have like a UI in Jupyter Lab because it's based to be working in Jupyter Classic in the first place. But it's really something that's automated rather than you having to code something. So the way it works, you can look at the repo, but just want to give you some context about it. So it's about registering basically ChatGPT as a custom exception handler. You can see that we incorporate in the notion of user system and assistant roles on the right, and we define the system role. And also we provide contextual information from the user. In our implementation in Noteable, on top of the open source package, what we did is really give access to the variable explorer that give all the schema of the data frame. We give access to the dependencies on the project. So ChatGPT knows about the files that's sitting alongside the notebooks. And that's really helped provide better suggestions. So that's the implementation detail I was talking about. We provide code history, provide output encoding, because encoding the output is always very difficult. We are working right now on really trying to parse better the data frames to make sure that for the tokenization, we don't go out of memory, so that actually ChatGPT can be faster and also not bail on us and having to handle the whole like LLM process with LangChain and trying to like build either recursive system. So we are trying to make it very simple, so there is no addition framework that we have to use, such as LangChain, which is the thing Jupyter has been doing. The takeaway, it's more efficient for experimentation and iterations. The fact that you have it within the notebook and it's within your runtime, basically ChatGPT has access also to the actual context of your notebook. The limitation, of course, is that depends on the comprehension of the model. Right now, it's only supporting GPT-3. We didn't do the work to be multimodal models. But if you want to collaborate, there's a genai repo. You can look at it. You can compare to all the others I shared on the slides. We'd love to contribute to the other ones as well. I really like the one from Jupyter by AWS teams. So yeah, pretty excited about that section. But now I really want to focus on the part 2, which is the most exciting for us, which is bringing notebooks in ChatGPT. So how did we do that? We did that basically by relying on the experience that we had at our previous company. So I come from Amazon. My CTO comes from Netflix, where he worked on Papermill, that you might be aware of. If you are not, I have a slide to explain what it is. I think there was a talk about, just before this one, about serverless notebooks execution, which is pretty relevant about that. We built a library called Papermill Origami that sits on top of it. What does it do? It's basically how to provide endless execution. So in Noteable, we respect all the formats of Jupyter, we respect all the protocols. We just move everything to the backend in plain English to be able to handle real-time collaboration and real-time things. So the origami is here as an engine to really try to being able to trigger and understand the deltas that we are sending from the backend, and being able to do endless execution, like creating cells, deleting cells, and taking care of running the kernel. Origamist, which is basically the Noteable plugin we built, is just a fast API web app. And of course, we use the Noteable UI because we did the full backend changes. But you know, if Jupyter had implementation with everything sitting in the backend, maybe we could use Jupyter UI for that. So a quick intro about Papermill. I'm going to be very fast because it's kind of a sideline, but I think it's important for you to understand what Papermill is about. Papermill was built at Netflix, and it's really used by most of the orchestrators that you see on the right. It has been used also, I didn't know about Microsoft, so I didn't put it there, but I know SageMaker, because I work there, it has been used internally as well to orchestrate notebooks. It has been used at Google. My CTO, Matthew Seal, who used to work at Netflix, gave a lot of talks years ago. There's a podcast if you want to learn more about it. But basically, Papermills will be the orchestrator for your notebooks. You can define the input, the output. It's really serving you as a way to not only make it reproducible, but also creating snapshots, which if you are using Jupyter without linear versioning, which is a typical problem for Jupyter Notebooks, Papermill is really helping with that traceability and reproducibility as well. Here's an example of how we use Papermill within Daxter. It works with all the other orchestration. I know Union and Flight is here. It's exactly the same setup, but just to understand how Papermill interacts with the backend of our Jupyter Notebooks and with the orchestrator here, Daxter, but it's kind of the same setup to apprehend when I'm going to show you about ChatGPT. So we have Papermill with the parameters that you can define within your notebooks, within your cell. That's going to trigger a notebook version. We do what we call the materialization of the run. The Noteable notebook becomes an asset in your Daxter, and that's basically how it works. There is a long blog post about it. We gave a talk at PyData New York last year here. I'm just going very fast on that because that's not the main content of the talk, but it's important for you to understand how Papermill orchestrator interacts with Notable's API and as well with the external world, which shares Daxter. But in our example, it's going to be ChatGPT. So, ChatGPT without IPython. If you go to ChatGPT and you say, create a notebook, whatever prompt you want, create me a notebook, please. It's just going to tell you what it knows, which is spin up a Jupyter Notebook locally, create a notebook, you can run those commands, and then you can open Jupyter yourself and click on the button. With our plugin, what do we bring? Like I said, with our integration of Papermill, origami, which is our async Python library to be able to understand our backend deltas, we bring less execution, so we bring a live kernel to ChatGPT. We bring the notion of I/O storage, so understand the code and the output. And we bring, of course, the dependencies, which brings more context, which is, the default runtime, the default base images, the CSVs of the file that's sitting alongside the project. So here's a quick video, and then I will jump into a live demo, and we can make it very interactive. The video, I'm going to zoom in. But I'm going to play it faster so we can move on to the next one. But basically, you see on the left is using the plugin. You can see from when you open the description that it's making the request to Noteable notebooks, which is triggering the file ID and the cell ID. And it's going to queue the cell that it just created. We actually, when we built real-time collaboration in Noteable, we pushed back the change to the project Jupyter. So now there's the same notion of output ID and cell ID in the project Jupyter that we are using ourselves. So what's important as well is ChatGPT can make mistakes, and we're gonna see that I'm sure when I give a live demo. And for example here, when I was running it using our plugin, you see that it understands that it forgot to run the cell that was previously in the notebook. But it has context of the notebook, so it knows that there is a cell which we've installed before that, and it says, okay, I'm gonna fix this and I'm gonna rerun the cell above that as the pip install, and then rerun the entire notebook. So it makes mistakes, but at the same time has context of the entire notebook. Here's an example when I'm asking to play with Fugue SQL, and actually asking also some details about the shard specification to do some specific conditional formatting on it. So why are we building that? We are building that because we really want to think about how you can be maybe on your phone, like I said at the beginning of the talk, thinking about using ChatGPT or any other models in the future, if we make it work on different models, then any UI that you have maybe on your phone or on your laptop, you won't have access to your notebook, you won't have access to internet. With the Wi-Fi, you just have 4G or 5G or whatsoever. And you can just maybe have an interface and say, hey, please create a notebook, use this file, or create this API, run a prediction model, and it will automatically not just give you the results, but actually generate the content. There is a plugin in OpenAI called Code Interpreter that's kind of giving you an IPython kernel, but the issue is that it's just ephemeral. It doesn't write the code for you. It doesn't save a notebook. It doesn't give you the reproducibility of what the kernel decided to do and what the model decided to do. So I have an example. This morning I was driving. I didn't do that while driving. I mean, maybe. And it didn't work really well. And after that, we're gonna do a live demo because OpenAI had big issues this morning, and they broke our plugin and then fixed it. But basically, I was on my phone while not driving, and I said create a notebook called PyData demo, and I'm gonna move faster because it had issues this morning. And it says, okay, the notebook PyData demo has been created successfully. You can access it by clicking. Here's the link. I will click on it if I want it. I'm going to do that in a second using my laptop. And I said, average the file, New York City daily CSV, to explore modeling approaches and feature engineering. So I did a lot of testing for that talk during this week during the conference. You must have seen me maybe on my computer. And it's funny because the more specific I was, the less useful ChatGPT was. At first I was like, I run this model by myself. It's a demo I do a lot when I try to talk about Noteable. It's a city bike example, which is the common data set sitting on BigQuery, public data set. And I did a linear regression myself, which works really well, and I give that demo, and it's a great demo because in 2020 there is the stay-at-home order I'm going to show you, and it works well. And I do a preliminary regression. I use calendar feature, weather features, and I tried the entire week to tell ChatGPT do exactly that. Do a preliminary regression using calendar features, using weather features, and it just didn't work at all. And then I started doing just do machine learning, please. And that's what it was the best at. Now what was interesting is the more I did it, there's some bugs here happening. You see the dot, you shouldn't do that, but the more I did it, each time with the same prompt I had different results, which was very surprising to me because, even if there's some probabilities and like I give exactly the same prompt all the time, there is no additional context, but the context that's very a snapshot of my project with a file that's there. It's the first cell of the notebook. It can sometimes do random forest and sometimes do a preliminary regression. So that was to show you that we are working on trying to make it work on mobile as much as we can. And I'm going to do a live demo. So let's try that. So on the right side is our UI. I'm on CSV here because we can open CSVs on your tabular view, which is not the topic here for the talk. So I don't know, maybe I need to refresh the page, we'll see. Let's try, let's say, create a notebook called, I'm going to do that PyData live demo. Maybe do I have to refresh the page and see? If it's not working, it's OpenAI fault, not mine. So there is a bug here, but again, it's OpenAI issue normally because they have issue with plugins this morning. Normally it should show what you saw in the demo when I can see the Noteable notebook and I can introspect into the API call, and I cannot today. So you see created a notebook here, PyData live demo. So we have a CSV. What do you want me to do with that CSV as a test? Was an idea. What do we do with that CSV? Anything. If not, I'm going to do something. I have some examples.
What's in your CSV?
It's you can see it. It's here. It's like a bunch of date count. Count is the number of trips, year, month, week, day of the week.
So model what?
most interesting features are?
What's the most interesting feature? What's wrong? Go. Now we'll see. You might create a new notebook because, yeah, let's see if it creates a new notebook, so using the notebooks I just did. So again, normally we will see the plugin like you have seen in my slide deck, and I will be able to look at the API request, but right now the OpenAI is having a hard time with their UI, so we're gonna have just to open and wait that it's working. So that's gonna be the annoying part, instead of being able to see what's happening. So what it does is just writing the code right now. It's just writing the code. Again, we cannot see it because of that bug. Sorry. It's writing the code, then as soon as it's done, it's just gonna send to the notebook. And because it didn't say I'm creating a new notebook, I'm sure it's gonna appear in this one, hopefully. It should appear in this one. Let's see. If not, it will create a new one. I mean, why are you running it? Ah, look at that. Popped up. So I guess it believes the cell is still running. I mean, apparently. Is it still running? I don't know. But yeah, so loaded the data. Let's see what it does next. So what we do here, we have, like you have seen in the maybe in the slide deck, the cell has finished running. Okay, good. So then it knows about the schema. Okay. Need to perform some present, so it's gonna do. So here again, we don't see that drop down, but basically it's picking a set ID, creating that, I'm sure, Python cell, and just dropping the code. So instead of dropping it in the chat, it's just dropping it in that command, and then it's gonna just send that back to Noteable. Here we go. It's gonna run that. So what did it do? It did Instagram for the count, box plot, and summary metrics. Summary statistics. And it's gonna run the cell. So yeah, while it's running, any question about anyone? I really want to make the second part of the talk very interactive. If you had any question, any feedback, as we are working on that. Is it something you feel like you're gonna want to use on your phone while you're at the park doing some data science? Go for it.
When ChatGPT is writing text into the notebook, what user does it show up as who wrote the code?
Oh, as good question. We do not track. I would have to check. I think we'll be doing it as the maybe. I don't know. That's a good question. We do not track. So we have a versioning system with linear versioning. When we see the changes made and we do auto saving, we cannot send back. We could inspect the console and see what it's doing and what it's running back at. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know check that. It's a good question. So what is it doing? So it's having issue running the cell. So I don't know if it's about, not understanding that there is a cell ID that's there yet or not. So it's still thinking.
Hello. So I have a curious question.
can you also integrate LangChain into this? Like you drop in your code and then ask ChatGPT to, I don't know, to rewrite the code in a simple format. Noteable, is there any scope for that?
Yeah, so it has complete notion of the notebook document, so it knows exactly which shell is there, and we might want to try another example because I know what it's doing here. But it knows exactly which cell is there, the cell ID, the output ID, and it can rewrite the cell content itself. So it would say like, hey, look at the cell when there is like, I don't know, the histogram and rewrite that to simplify it. Or you could say, you know, I was doing some example and I will show you another one. What is it doing here? I'll show you another one when I can say, you know, write me a notebook to get started with that, or write me a notebook to get started with Cube, and it's gonna write it. Now the main issue is gonna be around the model update, and you know it's September 2021, everyone knows that. There's a notion of additional plugins. So for example, you know, the plugins are there to just update the model with the content and knowledge that you want to share it with. So in Noteable, the purpose here is giving it an IPython kernel and somewhere to write it back to, where the other plugins, the whole context of it is giving you access to an API to have some additional data. So you can combine it to 3 plugins here. I'm sure LangChain and others will come up with the same kind of system. And if not, you can, you know, ask it to, let's do another example, for instance. Add a good one, which is, let me check. Add a good one, which was about let's start from scratch and say, let me find the name of the API already. I think it's there. And you can see that if you give it a simple prompt, with like, go fetch, give me a get started with an API or something like that, it's gonna write the entire notebook for you and it's gonna work. Where is it? It's error. Yeah, so this one, say, can you write a notebook to retrieve the, how did I call it already? The position, the flight's position using the public open sky REST API, for example. At least it's better here. We can see what it's doing. So let's go back to our project, which is PyDemo. So we just created a notebook here, great. So I think it's more interesting for you to see. The request here is a response. So here it's gonna basically start writing the cell. So you see the file ID, it's the ID, it's the type, the source. It's gonna start writing the entire request in one cell. The one issue is, as you can see, it's not very smart in terms of, I'm sure you could do a prompt to say, you know, segment the call or your work in different cells, but it's usually, if it's one code cells, it's gonna write everything into one code cell instead of like segment it. Here it does it because my prompt is pretty generic, so it's always trying to like provide markdown cells for explanation. But really the additional added value is that possibility of building notebooks without having access to your maybe, you know, whatever environment you have at the time you're doing that. And generating that content that is installed and you can always go back to.
Okay. I have a follow-up question. Do you think you can also turn this into some sort of auto GPT kind of setup, like using your plugin?
I think you will have to use different framework to do that because there is no feedback loop here. Maybe you could, I think,
what Agent GPT does and all that stuff is like it's really about building feedback loop and short-term memory, and we are not doing that here. It's more about, you know, it's a request and it's a feedback about the request, and then we are trying to just have one action. And now if ChatGPT is segmenting it, saying, you know, I have to segment that into multiple code cells because that's what I learned from the data I have. It's not really, I don't call that an agent at all. It's more like we give it one goal and it's gonna maybe do multiple steps to that goal. It's what you're referring to. Because I see those UI when you give it one goal and it's like segmenting into multiple steps and say, I'm gonna do it, and I think it's Agent GPT or whatever is doing that now.
Yeah.
So I see similarity in terms of the why, but maybe I would not call that like an agent at all. I'll just call that, you know, we give it one action, and if that's to do 2 or 3 code cells to do it, it will do that. I don't know why it's not running the cell. Let me run it here.
Thank you.
Any other question? Someone wants to try another example? Do you feel like you'll have coded that this way, or you'll have changed anything? How do you feel about the quality of the code?
It's a good starting point.
Yeah. Sounds good. Thank you.